I'll call the Smith County Board of Supervisors back into session.
I'll call the planning commission to order.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'd like, I would be happy to read the ad that was placed in the Smith County News. All right, before the Smith County Board of Supervisors and the Smith County Planning Commission, the Smith County Board of Supervisors and the Smith County Planning Commission will conduct a joint public hearing on Thursday, July 25th, 2024 at 7 p.m. or soon after 7 p.m. as the application described below may be heard in the Smith County Office Building at 121 Bagley Circle in Marion, Virginia, for the Planning Commission to consider whether or not to recommend the approval of the following applications, and the Board of Supervisors to consider whether or not to accept the Planning Commission's recommendation to the zoning ordinance of Smith County, Virginia. The first application being considered tonight is from Mr. William Varner, who has forwarded an application requesting a special use permit for a campground or RV park on Salville Highway north of Nuttywood Lane and across from 1857 Riverdale Lane in Salville. The property is identified as tax map number 29-A-82B and is zoned agricultural rural. Second application, Myrtle Properties LLC has forwarded an application requesting an amendment to the official zoning map at Chilhowie, Virginia to rezone approximately 15 acres from agricultural rural to industrial. The Smith County Comprehensive Plan does not identify a density range and the general usage of this portion of the property has most recently been agricultural. The property is located beside 289 Lee Highway, Chilhowie, Virginia 24319. Any person may appear and state his or her views on this matter at this public hearing, subject to the rules and procedures of the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission of Smith County, Virginia. Copies of the application and their maps or drawings are on file in the offices of the Zoning Administrator and County Administrator of Smith County. They may be reviewed upon request at the address above during regular business hours Monday through Friday. In compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, persons requiring special assistance to attend or participate in this hearing should contact Craig Williams, ADA Coordinator, at 276-706-8315 at least 48 hours before the hearing. Smith County fully complies with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related statutes and regulations in all programs and activities. For more information or to obtain Title VI discrimination complaint form, contact 276-783-3298 or at www.smithcounty.org. Done by the order of the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission, Sean Nutt, County Administrator, and Hazel Wagner, Chairperson of the Planning Commission.
Do we need the reading of the rules? Is this going to be a rowdy group? Can we suspend the reading of the rules?
Better call the sheriff in.
We got the deputy.
We got him.
I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to second to waive the reading of the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise?
All right.
Rules still in play, but we didn't read them to you.
All right, thank you. So the first application we have tonight comes to us from Mr. William Varner. He has applied for a special use permit to establish a two-space campground across from 1857 Riverdale Lane in Salville. His property is identified by tax map number 29-A-82B and it is zoned agricultural rural. We advertised notice of this public hearing in the Smith County News on July 13th and 20th. I sent a first-class letter to each of the adjoining property owners. While considering his request, I would like to bring the following items to your attention. Campgrounds and RV parks are permitted in the AR district by issuance of a special use permit. Article 9 of our ordinance defines campgrounds and RV parks. Mr. Varner plans to provide water and electricity to each of the sites. And as recommended, he contacted the Smith County Health Department, and because he is only proposing two spaces, the Health Department indicated that they do not regulate his application. As shown on the site plan, both sites are in the floodplain. All applicable regulations have been met or have been reviewed with Mr. Varner. And lastly, the future land use map in our comprehensive plan identifies his property as rural residential. That's all I have for this application. Mr. Varner is with us tonight, so I would invite him up to the podium to give you some more details about his application. Thank you. Yes, one question.
Clarification. The application says 1857 Saltville Highway, and you said 1857 Riverdale. Is it the
It is
same
technically
thing?
Riverdale. Yes, so that was a mistake. I think the ad was correct, but the description in one of the information packets is inaccurate. He does front on Saltville Highway. The address across the street is 1857. There was an assumption it was Saltville Highway, but it's not. There's a private lane that comes off, which is Riverdale.
I just wanted to make sure didn't get everything approved and somebody else say, oh, you approved the wrong piece of property.
Right, no, and that's why we specifically mentioned his tax map number, which is 29-A-82B. So if ultimately approved, it would be applicable to that tax map number. All right, thank you.
I believe, Stan, signed up to speak is, oh, go ahead, I'll let you talk.
Yes, good evening, I'm William Varner. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. I purchased this property back in 2014. Just happened to be a blessing to me. The gentleman that sold it to me, it was a dream come true. It's only like an acre and a quarter of property. I said, Mr. Hatfield, I'd just like to have a place for me and my grandchildren to be able to go fishing and camping. I said, I'd eventually like to put 2 RVs on it, one for myself, one for my family and our guests. And that's all it ever was. COVID came along and delayed me. I went to Mr. Williams and we were working on the electrical permit, and he did a lot of research on that to make sure that I was in the correct means, because like he said, we are in the floodplain. So he came back with a permit. He said, all of your electrical connections had to be above the floodplain. No problem whatsoever. We put a pole in, the pole was there and ready. AEP has looked at it. The power connections are above your head. We had an engineer come in and put the markers on 3 poles there to show the elevation of the floodplain so that there was no mistake where the place does flood. Mr. Williams said, as long as your electrical connections are above the floodplain, nothing can be permanent. Everything's got to be mobile. So our porta-john is on a trailer. We've had our camper up there a time or two. We haven't used it much, just things have been too busy. But Mr. Williams said, as long as everything is mobile, as long as all the connections are above the floodplain, and as long as there's no commercial camping, because it was a residential permit. I agreed with all that. Well, we're up to 2024 now. Things are finally happening a little bit now that we can do a few more things. And we have spent a fortune on this place, and I don't regret a dime of it. It cost us almost $9,000 to have the guardrail taken out and those square ends put on. They're $4,500 a piece. VDOT came up there, checked everything. They said, this is what you'll have to do. I said, no problem. I finally got someone to do it, spent about $9,000. I've got a fortune in a piece of property that's an acre and a quarter that I paid $2,000 for in 2014. I paid less than tax value. I don't regret a dime of it. All I'm asking now, everything's the same. All I'm asking now is allow me to put 2 campers on there, and they're close to the river. They're as far away from, neighbors as you can get, but they're close to the river, because my picture was to sit there in the morning, drink my coffee, and look up at the river. My life is revolving around peace and quiet. I love it. I promote that. I encourage that. Stress-free, peace and quiet. What we want to do now, we've got friends that we've camped with in Florida. They're up in Michigan. They want to come down and camp. They said, we'll pay you. Well, that sounds good. I don't want to charge my friends, but my goodness, we're 66 years old now. It wouldn't hurt to recoup a little bit of them. It will never, ever get back what we've already spent. So what we're asking now is, I can let our friends camp there today. And when they leave, they say, here, Bill, here's your envelope. That's not what we want. We want, if someone calls us, Bill, can we use the campground? Sure, as long as you go by our rules, which is no loud noise, no drugs, no alcohol, no bad language, and keep your noise down and have a quiet time, at selected hours. Sure. And you can pay us for it. We can't do that without this special use permit to do it legally. And that's all we're trying to do. Someone calls in, hey, we'd like to rent your camper for a weekend. We're going to Bristol races. We'd like to be able to say, sure. It'd help us a lot. So basically, that's what it is. We promote a Christian atmosphere. No bad language, no drugs, no alcohol, no fireworks, nothing loud, nothing obnoxious or abusive. Now, you might hear a child on the river in a kayak laughing. My 5 grandchildren were up there at one time and left my kayaks up the river, I don't know where, and came walking down the river. And anyway, and you might hear my wife say, got one, you know, because she's pretty loud when she does that. But that's all we're asking. We're asking 2 campers only. Never in our plans is it to add 3, because that's going to constitute a campground, and the health department has to be involved then. Also, that wasn't my agreement when I bought it. You don't have a dream come true and then turn around and lie to the man. I went to this, well, I did not. I called him on the telephone. I said, Mr. Hatfield, here's what's going on. He said, I'm fine with it. He said, it's yours, enjoy it. So that's where we're at today. That's what we want. Two campers is all we're ever looking at. In our lifetime, somebody else is going to have to come back once we're dead and gone and ask for another permit if they want to fill it full of campers. That's not our desire. We're just asking for a few dollars here and there to help supplement what we've spent already. So I can't think of anything else. I appreciate you hearing me today.
Any questions?
No
We're
questions.
fine up here.
Thank you.
We've had 3 people sign up. The first is Donna and Andy Wolf, and Donna, you're on there first. So come forward, state your name and address for the record.
He missed an acre, a little over an acre, but there's almost 3 acres adjoining that. And, you know, starting
Name and address.
Ralph Fry, 1969 Saltville Highway. And I do own the 1857 Riverdale Lane right across from it.
Okay. Go ahead.
And there's almost 3 acres adjoins this acre and whatever. And two sites, if they get approved, I look for the whole bottom to be full of campers. I oppose it, and that's my position on it. And he didn't say one thing about sewage, where the sewage is going to go to, and it's in the floodway, and all that property through there is agriculture, zoned agriculture. And I'd like to see it left that way. Thank you.
All righty. Donna Wolf? Name and address, please.
Donna Wolf. My address is 2007 Saltville Highway. We live just right down the road in view of where this proposed campground wants to be. First of all, I'd just like to say we cannot assume that a 2-camper RV is going to stay this way, and that really concerns me. We moved here a year and a half ago when my father-in-law passed away, and we're living in his house that we bought from our sister-in-laws, their portions, to maintain what he has done and built since 1986. And we're here to honor him and keep his property the way it is. It's peaceful, it's the country, and I love it. We actually lived in a campground a short time when we were living at the beach after we had sold our house, not quite knowing what we were going to do. Believe me, I know what goes on in campgrounds, okay? It's detrimental to the land, it's detrimental to our animals, it's detrimental to the river that is there and erosion. I mean, you can already see from the pictures that he's created a beach access, which is only gonna increase that flood zone even more. It's gonna make it worse. My other concerns is, you know, this is kind of brief, doesn't give a lot of detail, and there is so much to really concern ourselves with when you look at a campground. You know, one, it's going to increase traffic. Huge campers leaving and coming with their visitors to the sites. We're going to have an increase in lights in that area. Not only them decorating their RVs, which we did. We lived in one in North Myrtle. But also on the property where, you know, AEP will put up lights to light the campground. The other thing is that, you know, we're not guaranteed at any time 2 campers. Like he said, when he does pass away, whoever inherits that land, or if they buy the adjacent land, we could be looking at a whole campground with even more, taking up the view and the beautiful view of the North Holston River. Noise. So yes, there's a lot of noise. The people there playing music, their guests that come and go to see these people who are camping. Not to mention, you know, you can say all day long, you cannot drink there, you cannot smoke there, there can be no pot smoke there. I don't know who's going to be there to enforce that. So we're going to have an increase in intoxicated individuals being disruptive, loud and aggressive. And I really just don't want that. We have no trespassing signs up, but that doesn't mean that they will respect them. The other thing we talked about, and I seen it on his thing, that the campsites will be running no more than 180 consecutive days. Well, when you really look at that, that's 6 months. That's a long time. That's basically living there. So who's to say they're going to pull off the property and come right back and live for another 6 months? This destroys the whole beauty of the land. And if you want to see evidence of that, right on across the river, up about the same distance that Mr. Varner's property is from ours, there is property there with 2 campers on it right there. And they're lived in full time. They're never moved. Where they dump their sewage, I have no idea, and I pray it's not in the river. But this is what it looks like, and this is what ends up looking like to our beautiful area in North Holston. I'm sure this was a good idea back when they did this. I disagree.
So this is right there where you're at?
Yes, ma'am. I'll show you where the property is. I printed off the plat maps. So this is where the proposed campground is. This is our property across the river, and on the river we own property on the river. And then right here is where those 2 properties are. So they're almost, our property starts over here across the thing. This is where those pictures are.
It's right here.
That is Gun's Wall. I can't say her name.
Trees or houses?
No, it's a house that sits off the road, and her name is Consuela. So here is this property, and she owns both of those lots. And there's an older white kind of house there, and then the property where the 2 campers are right here. And there's trash in the yard. It gets in our river, and it, on top of just not being a very beautiful site. I think this will have a negative impact on our community. Not only North Holston, but McCready and Topple. It's not something I want, you know, to see every morning when we're sitting on our front porch drinking coffee, and to see all of that. Another question of mine, my concern is, you know, who is going to pick up the trash from these campers when he rents it out to people from up New York or for the race? Because when you have trash that's not contained and people who don't understand the dangers of bears, that's gonna put it at risk for them rummaging through it, which also puts a risk, an increased risk to the livestock that's around there, to our cows and goats. You know, if they don't put them on huge cement like platforms, what's gonna happen when it's rainy and wet and they pull in those huge fifth wheels or campers and pull it out with those big dualies? The whole bottom is gonna be a mess. And about the dump site, who is gonna be there to make sure that the camper just decides, oh, I'm just gonna take my black tank right down here to the river and dump it. I don't wanna ride it down the road and slosh it around. Or take that black hose and open the thing and let it go. Or right there on the site, which sinks into our grounds, which gets into our rivers, and it poisons our fish and our life, and all kind of like, animal life. Sorry, it makes me nervous. I speak at my work and it doesn't make me this nervous. You know, and then he also proposed the site as a recreational and campsite, so I'd like to know what his definition of recreation is. You know, does that mean we're gonna have golf cart rentals, they're gonna be running around, we're gonna have some kind of pool going on or a sauna, or, you know, a big climbing, you know, thing with the, for doing, climbing mountains for the kids. You know, that's gonna be even more noise. So I guess in short, I guess I will finish. Just consider what the long-term frame looks like. You know, I'd like to be able to leave this property to our children. And that's not something I really would like for them to have to deal with themselves. They love it up there, we love it up there. And the question is, would you really want this beside your house where you live? And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wolf, you want to say anything? Please state your name and address for the record.
Andy Wolf, 2007 Saltville Highway. She covered almost anything I would have to say, but Mr. Varner says this is a dream come true, but this is very impactful on the neighbors. There's people here that are not here tonight that live very close, closer than Joe Boy here and myself. It's right up, they have to drive by it every day. It's right on their driveway, pretty much, and it is on Saltville Highway. It's on the corner there. So, there's just a lot there that, I mean, anybody in this room, anybody anywhere, I think would not want this moving down the street from them, right in the side of their house. Have to look at it every day. I don't have much to say. Wife, like I said, she covered a lot, but I think it's opened up a can of worms, and I think this could get bad, get worse. There's a lot of room for campers in the adjoining property there, another 3 acres there. I think this could get really ugly, and I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this subject?
Can I speak just another moment?
Yeah, come forward.
Yeah, I thank these folks for their comments too, but looking back at 2014, this was approved for my recreational use with 2 campers. I am a very neat and clean person. Mr. Wolf doesn't remember when his dad was living, he and I were friends. His dad drove down there by that property every day and picked up trash. I did the same thing. I've hired people and done it myself. Weed eated that property, the guardrail from Nuttywood Lane up to Mr. Fry's property line, to both sides of 91, to keep that place neat, picking up trash. And it really discouraged me so much, the amount of trash. I proposed with our mayor in Saltville a way that maybe we could eliminate some of this. That's a whole different discussion. But just to say that much, you know, I am a very neat, clean person. You don't find trash on that property, nor would I allow anybody to leave trash. Now, we're not talking about people camping there for 180 days out of the year. We're talking about people camping there maybe 4 or 5 days at the most, and getting out of there. Their black tanks will be full. They're aware that they're going to have to dump those off premises. The town of Saltville is putting in a campground. I will be attending all the meetings to stay in touch with that, because I want to make sure that they do put in a good dump station there. The town of Saltville is encouraging tourism and campers and campsites. We can go back to square one. I'm allowed to have my 2 personal campers there. You know, that's never been a problem from the start. As far as I know, they can't stop me. But, you know, my campground will be neat, and it will be orderly. And there will not be any black water nor gray water on the ground. There will not be any obnoxious noise. I don't allow that. So anyway, there won't be any 180-day campers. There won't be any decks built onto them. There won't be any carports built. Mr. Williams said in the beginning, everything's got to be mobile. No problem. I've moved it out before. I bring a trailer in, I load the picnic table on it, I hook the portage on to the truck or whatever, and everything's cleaned out, ready to go until the next flood. So no problem there. I don't have to do this. I mean, I've already been approved to do the 2 residential sites, and we're going to do that. But what we want to do is be able to make it commercial, that we can say, you know, hey, if you want to rent one of our sites, if it's empty, or rent one of our campers. But Mr. Wolf, Eddie Wolf, the senior that's deceased now, was fine with what we do. Speaking of picking up trash, he picked up trash every day on his bicycle. He and I both despised it. I hired people to weed eat the bank there, not only on my property, but on Nutter's property and on Hatfield's property on both sides. That bank is so steep. And it was 100 years of glass bottles. There were lottery tickets, fast food. I hauled in tandem loads of shell and covered up what glass I could not pick up, so that bank could be mowed. These folks don't know that. They don't remember that. You know, they don't look at those things before. But the amount of glass I picked up off that bank, and then spent my hard-earned money to put shell on that and cover it up so it can be mowed with a lawnmower now, is a great improvement. That property has improved. As far as traffic, VDOT is involved. I was supposed to have had their answer today. My engineer that I hired charged me $1,500 to do the survey for the line of sight. He hasn't done his part yet. I've got to have a public engineer do the drafting on it. So VDOT's involved, and they're going to be doing the computer, what do you call it, to figure out what distance we need to be from the curve. No problem. Speed limit's 35 miles an hour till you get to my entrance roughly, then it changes to 45. So they're on top of that. They're working on it. My engineer's supposed to be working on it, and we'll get that answer. So VDOT's either going to approve it or not. If they don't approve it, then, you know, I'm wasting my time here. But I would like your consideration in this to allow me to at least recoup a few $100s a year, you know, and there's not going to be any 180-day campers there either. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Let's come back with a rebuttal. We're not supposed to, but we'll relax here.
I think, Mr. Varner, the misunderstanding was I'm not talking about trash on the road, I'm talking about trash in the campground.
That's what I'm talking about too.
And so when you talk about renting it, are you talking about like listing it on an Airbnb site? I mean, how are you gonna get people from up in New York and places to come?
If you heard me in the beginning, we camp in
I heard
Florida
you.
with people from Michigan and all over the United States
Okay.
that want to come down here. They
Okay.
want to give us money to use our spaces.
And who is this? I mean, so you're basically forking your reputation and everything on whether or not they're going to do what they're supposed to with their toiletries and the black water, the gray water, all of that, and keeping it clean.
Do you honestly think that anybody watches these people 24 hours a day. You give them
Yeah,
a
we had
shot.
security guards in the campground we lived in.
We
Yes,
did too, but they're
Okay.
not under every camper watching every moment of it. They get
Okay.
real.
So
Get real.
what do you think we should take from that though? Because if they're not watching all the time, what happens? Did you have nobody drinking in the campgrounds you stayed at in Florida?
They can't.
All right, I think y'all can handle this without us sitting here listening in on it.
Thank you, thank you.
Any questions up here to any of them? Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask one question.
Who you asking?
Well, let's Mr. Varner first. How long have you been camping on that property?
I've been up there very few times, and I've owned it since 2014.
Okay, so just a guesstimate, how many times have you camped there?
Half a dozen.
Half a dozen times, okay,
Mhm.
all right. Just out of curiosity, have you all had any issues when he's been there camping at this point? Which I realize we're talking about apples and oranges here, I realize that.
We've only been there a year and a half.
Okay,
I don't know if you campers, did you bring campers when you camped there?
Excuse me?
Did you bring campers when you
I
camped there?
have.
Maybe
We
it hasn't
haven't seen
been since
any-
a year and a half we
Yeah.
lived there.
okay. Mr. Fry?
I saw a couple tents over there, is all I
That's all
never
you
did see a
say?
camper over there.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. I was just wondering if there was something that, has happened or something along
No,
that
I
line.
guess
And-
really the
and I-
main concern is just not that it's him and his wife, family and
Sure.
grandkids, that's great, but when you start doing commercialized, you can't control what comes in and what happens.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. Mr. Williams, can I ask you something?
Sure.
In camping, and I realize we're looking at two spots, are there any regulations that go with that go typically in the special use permit for those things?
So that's one option that the planning commission has to recommend, and ultimately you all have to approve. If there's any conditions that you think would help mitigate some of the concerns, maybe strike a compromise if you will, then that's certainly something worth talking about.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Go ahead.
And this just has to do with the Porta-John facilities. Is there any thing through the health department or anything with the location where that's at in a flood zone? Does that have any effect?
So, the health department has obviously different rules than we do. They draw the line at 3 or more. So if you propose a campground, a commercial campground with 3 or more campsites, then their regulations kick in and you have to put in more of a permanent sewage disposal system. In this case, he is exempt from health department requirements, but he's not exempt from meeting the requirements of legally disposing of the sewage. So whoever camps there, whether it be him or someone from New York, they're still obligated to take that to an approved dump station. Now, when you get into the actual health department requirements, that's when you get into permanent facilities. That can get tricky in the floodplain just because of the soils that you find in the floodplain. Soils that stay wet, for the bulk of the year tend to have problems perking.
Well, and I guess, further my question is, somebody would have to be available, I guess, 24/7 to remove that.
So typically with
Porta-John,
RVs,
if there was a
well,
flood
most,
coming through that.
yeah, I would assume that the plan is for them to
Is that
dispose of their sewage in the tank that's with their RV,
Right.
and for them to take that with them to an approved dump station when they leave.
Right.
That's how most RV parks
Right,
work.
but, yeah, and I'm familiar with the camping, there was mention about a Porta-John, so that was,
That was just for like our tent camping, when we would go up there and have picnics, we had the church up there. I would pull a Porta-John on a trailer.
just while you were there.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not something you're looking at with this?
No,
correct?
no,
Okay.
because a camper would, like he said, would have its own black tank. You come in there empty, you leave before it's full and go dump as you leave, because you're not gonna be there that many days.
Thank you.
So you could put 2 campers on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
How many are you proposing to put on?
Just like I said, 2. That's it.
Just 2?
That's all I told you.
What are we arguing about? If you
Exactly.
can already put 2.
I told you.
All right, so let me clarify that. There is a distinction. Our zoning ordinance exempts property owners from using campers on their own property.
Right.
So if you own a tract of land and you own an RV and you wanna put an
Put it
RV
on.
on it, you have the ability to do that through our zoning ordinance.
Right.
If you decide to rent that space out, whether it be 1, 10, or 100, then you're obligated to apply for this permit. Because he wants to rent potentially both sites out, that's why he has applied for this permit. If he wanted to put his own RV up there and live in 180 days and camp there every night, he can do that. And that's exempt from our ordinance, it complies. The fact that he wants to rent these potentially 2 spots out is what's necessitating this process. And I'll go ahead and address something else while I'm here. He's applied for a 2-space RV park. So he is prohibited from going to 3, to 4, to 10, to 20, or 100. If that were to be the case, either by him or a future property owner, they would have to come in and apply for another special use permit.
Right. And if I had those intentions, I would have AEP up the power now, but I don't. They're doing 200 amp service. That only allows me 4 spaces at the max. You know, I'm not worried about that. I'm looking at 2 spaces. It's all it ever was. It's all I ever want to do for my lifetime.
Okay, any other questions, Ms. Ford? We're done back here, how about y'all?
Thank you, Mr. Good.
I got a couple of questions. Where is the closest dump station from this property?
Town of Saltville, the Lions Club has some. 7 Mile Forward Campground, Hungry Mother Park, and then the Town of Saltville. Like I said, they're supposed to be putting in a campground. I want to make sure they have, and they will have a dump station, but I want to make sure that it's easy access for other campers.
I was just thinking, the closest it is that would make it more convenient for the campers, the more compliance you're gonna have with that.
Right,
So that was
again,
just to
these are
cover
short
that
term
expense.
now, and I think maybe Petro has one. So either leaving north or leaving south, you know, you would have the ability to.
Correct. Okay. How much lighting have you got there now?
How much lighting?
Lighting?
There won't be any. Because my wife and I had AEP take down our street light recently, because we're stargazers. And when we had our power upgraded just recently, we had AEP take their light down, because we won't be able to control our lighting. We have no plans for any other lighting. Now, we do have plans for security, because the nutters have a concern, and I said, Carol, when I get security in there, I'll put a camera looking at your bridge. So, I mean, that right there is just being a good neighbor, okay? And that's what we've tried to be from day one. Mr. Fry can attest to that, and so can the Nutters. Rusty Nutter gave me a right-of-way to get to our place till I got the guardrail fixed, and in turn for that, I gravelled his road, I left him gravel for his road, we weed eat for him and mow, and now he's coming out my driveway with loads of hay because he's afraid to take them across his cattle guard. I said, Rusty, have at it, all you want, you don't have to ask me. That's a good neighbor. They're not here today because evidently they don't want to protest what I'm doing. And I've talked to both of them. But I've been a good neighbor to them from day one, and they have me. Joe Boy has. Now the Wolves, I don't know them. I knew Eddie, Mr. Wolf's daddy. He and I worked together, he's a good man. But anyway, that's all beside the point. All I'm trying to do is say, I've been a good neighbor, and they were good to me too.
That's all I have.
All right, I'll close this public hearing. You want to explain it? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so I've already explained to everybody the process. All right, so the application, or the second application we have tonight comes to us from Myrtle Properties LLC. And before I begin this one, let me ask, Heather and Heather, can you hear us? All right, hold on.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, and we've got you as well. All right, so I'll start over. The second application we have tonight comes to us from Myrtle Properties LLC. They've applied to have approximately 15 acres of land in Chilhowie rezoned. The property is identified as a portion of tax map number 54-A-28. Initial conversations with the prospective buyers indicated that they should be rezoned to industrial, but after further conversation, it was determined that the property should be rezoned to commercial. Consequently, we are asking you tonight that you consider rezoning this tract to commercial as opposed to industrial. Like the previous application, Notice of this hearing was advertised in the Smith County News, and a first-class letter was sent to each of their adjoining property owners. Most of the area proposed to be rezoned tonight is identified as commercial/industrial, while the remainder is rural residential. And while considering their request, I'd like to point out the following. Section 3-2 contains the district regulations for the AR district. Section 3-4 contains the district regulations for the commercial district. And Article 9 covers the requirements that must be met when we amend the official zoning map. But specifically, I would like to highlight Section 9-25, which does allow the property to be rezoned to a lesser intensive use. And what I mean in English is that we advertised it to be rezoned to industrial, which is the most intensive use we have in our zoning ordinance. But in light of the new information, we're asking that it be rezoned to commercial instead, which is lesser, and therefore is permitted by code. We did receive one letter regarding this application, so I'd like to read that into the public record now. It's dated July 19th, 2024. Comes to us from Joyce McGee, P.O. Box 613, Chilhowie, Virginia 24319. It's addressed to the Smith County Planning Commission, and specifically Becca Creasy, zoning administrator and clerk. As a resident on Middle Fork Road, across from the agricultural rural property, tax map number 54-A-28, I would like to state that I am not in favor of zoning change from agricultural rural to industrial requested by Myrtle Properties LLC, because I do not wish to have another industry in the area that could cause as much noise, dust, and smell pollution as the chip/bedding industry in the same area. As this property is almost in sight of Chilhowie Elementary School, you need to get input from the Smith County School Board, all personnel of Chilhowie Elementary School, and the families of all elementary students who will be adversely affected by the industrial traffic, industrial noise, and industrial smell. The Sheriff's Department, which does a superb job of handling the immense morning child drop-off traffic and evening child pickup traffic, also needs to have input. Respectfully, Joyce McGee. And that's all I have for you regarding this application. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Heather and Heather, and then allow them some time to add any additional information they would like to. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you, everyone, for your consideration and hearing us out tonight. We would be there, but asked for Kendra Hayden to represent us tonight in a letter, because we had a vacation plan for 2 years, and this just came up a few months back. So thank you so much. I understand the concerns from Ms. McGee. This is not industrial. There's no machinery, no pollution, no environmental issues. Open 4 days a week only. And basically, it is only 15 acres, and the 289 Lee Highway building, which is already zoned industrial. And that 15 acres is within our own plat, within our own acreage of a little over 100. So it actually doesn't border, this exact amount being outdeeded is only road frontage there, and it would solve the blight of the farmhouse and all the old farm buildings and all of that stuff. So it's something that's very low actual machinery maintenance type. And let me see if Heather has anything else to add.
And it will bring employment, jobs, and opportunity for Smith County. It will help us grow for jobs for there. The building, like it's already in industrial use and is being used industrial use, we'll be using the same entrances as that what is there now. We will not be doing a bunch of work for re-entrancing for a lot of truck turnaround traffic. So it's basically going to be used for the same thing that it is now, except for getting the additional acreage put there for them to hopefully potentially grow in the future.
And have a driveway. They need a driveway to turn a truck into. We're not looking at more than 10 truck turnarounds per week. And we all know that American Wood Fibers has far more than 10 truck turnarounds. And then Blue Ridge Knives across the road, they have tons of employees, and so does Oak Hall, Cap and Gown, and Homestead. So this wouldn't even be as many cars or trucks as any of the other surrounding factory buildings use.
All righty, any questions for the board up here? Have any questions for them? Planning Commission have any questions?
I've got one question. I'm just curious.
Yes, sir.
Heather, it's Junior Davidson, Grand Davidson. I'm just wondering,
Hey, Junior.
not what business or what company or nothing like that, just, can you give us any kind of a hint of what type, general type it we're looking at, so we're,
Yes, I can. I'm under a confidentiality disclaimer, but I can tell you that it's trailer modification,
like in
no machinery.
like in a semi-trailer type thing?
Like steel fabrication, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for him?
Anybody in the planning commission?
Hearing none, I'll get into the public that's here now. We've had 3 sign up, so first off, with Thomas McGee, come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Thomas McGee, 145 Middle Fork Road, Marion, Virginia. I feel like Yogi Berra tonight because it's deja vu all over again. I've got students here everywhere that I had, and so it's just coming all back to me. Evidently, I didn't hurt them any. They've turned out okay.
And we take care of it.
Mr. Sturgill's having a second thought, so.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
I grew up on a dairy farm in Smith County. I have a love for the agricultural history of Smith County. Anytime that I see where rural or agricultural land is being repurposed, I'm a bit sad. I realize that it's only 15 acres, but it's land that we'll never get back again. I don't understand why this segment is being designated for industrial use when there is already an industrial building on adjacent property that is currently not being utilized. The road servicing this area, US 11, is becoming quite crowded and dangerous. There is a constant stream of tractor-trailer traffic going to the wood fiber plant and the industrial park, and it only seems to get worse every day. When schools are in session, it then becomes more of a problem to navigate this stretch of road from the 7 Mile Ford exit south or the Chilhowie exit north. The big problem is the tractor trailers, they can't turn. They've got to have both lanes. And many times I have taken my personal vehicle and blocked traffic, put my flashers on, so that they can make the turn. And that's just not a good situation. And if we add something else to the other side of the road, US 11 is not getting any bigger. It'll just be more congested. The wood fiber plant is a very sore subject for those of us who live in the immediate proximity of the plant. Before the plant opened, we were told that homes surrounding the area wouldn't even know they were there. After opening, we quickly knew that we had been deceived. The machinery runs 24/7 and creates extreme noise. The plant generates a pervasive smell of scorched wood, and those closest to the plant have to deal with a layer of wood dust. Thankfully, I'm far enough away, I don't get that part of it, but we definitely get the noise and the smell. If the change is approved, the citizens of Smith County who live around this area want to make sure it is not another wood processing fiasco. Our lifestyle has been disrupted enough, and we don't want the peace and quiet we still have threatened any further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Looks like Robert Hicks, Bob. Name and address for the record, please.
I live at 195 7 Mile Ford Road, which is exactly about 1/10 of a mile from the front of the wood fiber plant. So you can imagine what I go through every day. At night when I lay down in my bed to go to sleep, I hear a real shrill noise. It kind of comes through the house like someone's trying to torture you. It's a real loud shriek. It kind of pierces the ears. Not only that, but you know, when this thing started to come in there, I didn't even know it was going in there because I don't live on the road where the thing went in. Why that happened, I don't know. because it's right in my window every day. I can wash my car 1 minute. The next morning I go out, it has sawdust all over it. Every windowsill in my house has sawdust in it. I wash it out 2 or 3 times a year, but it lands right back on there in a couple of days. It doesn't take long. The other thing is, like I say, you know, I was not even notified that this plant was going in. I found out at my dealership down at Empire Ford when one of the supervisors came in there and started talking about it. It's the first I heard about it. Well, it was already going in. Had no say. That's one thing that I have a problem with. No one has any say. It's whatever people that's got plenty of money and say. And that's what happens without any input from anybody that lives close. I've lived here in Smith County all my life, and I grew up there in 7 Mile Forward, and lived in Chilhowie in the late 50s up until I got married and moved back to 7 Mile Forward. I've lived in that same house for 47 years now, my wife and I. We love the area, we love this section, but anything else, I've been able to tolerate this. I have to turn the TV up at night to go to sleep because I can't have to drown out that sound from that plant. But if anything like that goes in there again, I don't know. Of course, I'm 72 years old, so I probably don't have that much longer on this old earth, but who knows? But anyway, that's my feelings on it. I feel like we were deceived before, and I feel like we're getting deceived now because we don't have any idea what's going in there. I'd like to know what's going in there before it goes. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We got one more to speak. Looks like Steve Smith.
Good evening. Just basically, Steve Smith, 260 7 Mile Forward Road. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces and friends here tonight. I actually had a folder about this thick I started to bring where we had dealt with American Wood Fiber back after it had come in. We have had absolutely tons of issues with the dust, the noise, the odors. At times you can't even go outside. You can't open doors and windows, that type of thing. And I know tonight we're looking at a different possibility. But there's so much similar in that we're not being told anything prior to this coming in. My first statement would be this. I understand that they may be under obligation to an agreement. Why cannot this thing be postponed, this hearing, until they're at liberty to tell us exactly what's going to be done? How can you make decisions on I don't know? It might be this, it might not. We were told with American Wood Fiber, you've already heard these two gentlemen, whom I really respect. We were told a lot of things. We were made many promises. To date, we're waiting for the first one to be fulfilled. We're still dealing with the dust. And what Bob said is true. You can't wash a vehicle and not have to wash it 2 days later. You clean your windowsills today, they're dirty tomorrow. There's times you can't open doors and windows in the nice weather because of dust and odor. Let me read a statement right quick. They say they are a green company, recycling business. This statement from an organization, Green America, a quote, "Green business adopts principles, policies, and practices that improve the quality of the life for their customers, their employees, their communities, and the environment." None of that's been fulfilled. Our quality of life has diminished from back in 08, 09 when this thing came in. It has not gotten any better. We learned to deal with it like Bob said. I don't think it's fair that just because it's not in somebody else's backyard, that they're willing to put it in our backyard. Have you ever heard the term NIMBY? N-I-M-B-Y? It's okay as long as it's not in my backyard. Our backyard has been destroyed. We deal with it every day. Now, I know this is not quite what we're talking about tonight, but just to let you know what we in the community, and I've been asked by other neighbors to speak, to know why we're so guarded and sensitive to something new coming in. It's just like Bob said. It may be a wonderful thing, I don't know. But if we don't know, we can't make that judgment. Why can we not wait until we're able to be told exactly what's going to take place, what's going in there, and how is it going to affect the community? I feel like that 7 Mile Forward, especially that end, man, we've taken a bullet for this county. And I've been through all this before several times back years ago. We made our case, we made our argument. The board agreed with us. And yet, nothing's been done. Charlie Clark, most of you remember Charlie, when he was chairman, sat down at a table with Ray Blevins and myself and told us face to face, Steve, if I knew then what they were going to do and how they were going to go about it, we would have never let them come in. But you can't change it now. Now, we've been made promises that the dust mitigation would be remedied, that the noise would be downsized, diminished. None of those things have taken place. And when the plant manager at that time was asked about the dust, he said, oh, we could incorporate this system, but that's going to cost thousands of dollars, and we're not going to do that. What's that make you think? If you're a citizen, what does that tell you what they think of you? Now, with all that being said, that's just to let you know why we feel like we do. Can this not be put off until all the details and all the facts are known, and come back and discuss this when we have all the information? I've got pictures like you wouldn't believe concerning the dust, videos you wouldn't believe. And I'd gladly let you look at them. But you've already looked at some photos, and I know it's getting late, and I don't want to keep you. But if you have any question, please speak to me and look at these photos. And then you tell me if you think those two gentlemen, myself and surrounding neighbors, don't have a legitimate argument. With that being said, I hope and pray that you will consider very earnestly this decision. I know for most of you, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect your constituents. But it matters greatly to us. I appreciate your time, and I'm tickled to be here to see some faces I haven't seen in a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
If you don't mind, I'll say a couple of words, just key points for
Alrighty.
everybody, just to hopefully maybe answer some questions. Concerning economic development projects, and the reasons that it's confidential is not because we're trying to hide anything. We present all this information at closed session as we're legally allowed to do in our EDA meetings and the Board of Supervisor meetings. They are privy to more details than what the public is, and that is purely because that is the way that these companies prefer to do business, and especially regarding incentives and potential incentives, those have to stay confidential until the project is announced. So we are not able to discuss as many details as we would like to. A couple of things I would like to just remind everybody is that this is not industrial anymore. We are asking for commercial. It is not a wood fiber product in any stretch of the imagination. It is not a manufacturing facility. So those are things that I would like just to reiterate and point out. Regarding the timeline and why we cannot wait, is simply because of the project timeline. So in order for them to meet their project timeline as far as announcement and beginning operations, this has to precede that, and we cannot share the detailed information about the project until that happens. So it's just the alignment of the project details. I am sure if there's any specific direct questions that any public would like me to take up with the company, I am happy to provide that information to the company and try to answer questions respectively.
All right, any other comments? Mr. Smith?
I just wanted to briefly say that I understand the young lady's position, but I still want to emphasize the speed in this should not negate the citizens' right to know what's going in, what's going to happen, and all of that. I understand things have to work in a timely order, but I don't think they should take precedent over the citizens of this community and this county. Not in this project, not in any project. That, to me, that's just not a legitimate argument. And we've heard that one before, so I'm kind of sensitive to those things, but that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Any other comments, any questions? Go ahead.
Okay. Kendra, we certainly not gonna break any confidentiality. What I was gonna ask you is, could you contact the company and see if they will allow us to provide any, does that make sense? I don't know what they can and can't say.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've already asked for permission to be able to even share in closed session who the company is, and I have not been given that permission to do so. I have been able to share the industry and that service that it works in, but they want to remain confidential, and they have every right to do that.
Okay.
That doesn't really answer much.
And just I'll ask the question, sir. How many jobs come up with this company?
Those are also project details in an open session format that I'm really not supposed to give details on. In closed session format, which we've already had discussions on, I've informed you all on, it does bring a number of good quality, high paying jobs. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose the amount. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions, Jason?
No, I won't ask the question.
We're through up here, how about the planning commission?
They said something about, just 4 days a week. What about the hours and the noise, and what would it add to their quality of life or take away from, I mean, if we're talking steel and we're talking.
Sure. As far as hours of operation, I'm not sure.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
8 hours, and all of the work that we're doing with the steel is inside the building with no machinery. It's not outside, it's inside their building.
How do you work with steel?
The loudest thing they will have would
wish
be
I could
a
share.
welder
Yeah.
inside the building.
It's not manufacturing. I will just reiterate, that is in no way a manufacturing facility. That's why it's not
No.
an industrial request and it's
How
a
do you
commercial
work with
request.
steel, not like Noel said? That's what I.
I understand,
That's what
I understand your frustration, and it feels like, I wasn't here when that happened before, and that is what it is. But I can't do anything but move forward, and unfortunately, I'm bound by confidentiality to be able to only share
I have one more
certain
question.
information.
Since I'm in front of everybody, is there not something, anything can be done about this wood fibers plant's noise and dust? What can be done about that? I mean, that's frustrating every day. And I would invite anybody to come to my house and spend the night any night they want to. I have an extra bed, and you can sleep in there and listen to the noise all night if you like.
I realize you've got a problem, well, you all have a problem with that, because I lived, next to the, back when it was manufacturing, I lived next to, the plant in Atkinson. Used wood, and I understand the sawdust, I understand the truck, you hear a truck go by the house and he hits his Jake brake and he knocks you out of bed. So, I understand what you're going through. That's
a great place to get jumped by.
That's a issue for another time, another place, you know, maybe need to talk to some, but tonight we're here to discuss this 15 acres and how you feel about that particular, and I understand your concerns, I really do.
You can't really tell anybody how you feel because you don't know anything.
No, that's it.
I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, that's pathetic, if you ask me.
But
That's all
we
I'm
here on the
saying.
Board of Supervisors we'll close our meeting, adjourn our meeting, and leave it with the Planning Commission.
We'll close planning commission and try to re-adjourn to debate our decision.
Thank you everyone for being here.
Public hearing is over, board is done, they're gonna go home, some of them may hang around. But their meeting is officially over. The planning commission is gonna reconvene, it's still a public meeting, you're still welcome to stick around and hear what they have to say. They will hopefully formulate a recommendation for both applications, and that will be forwarded to the board at their next meeting on August 8th.
Oh, yeah. And see my mother, these folks, she lives across the road from Steve. So, I mean, I know exactly where they're at. You got that
Yeah, then you give me a call. Yeah, call me tomorrow.
It was never. Tell him,
I got it.
Look at it, they're not going to manufacture.
I thought you were right. I
Right there with
I'm clear with it.
I'll be right back. We are still recording. I don't know
Folks, we still have a meeting, so the planning commission is back in session, and they're gonna deliberate. You're welcome to stick around and hear what they have to say, but they do need the room right now. Thank you.
Hey, When he puts in special use permit, some rules and regulations, what he's gonna have from the rules and regulations, something like that. What's y'all's opinion?
Thank you. You know, Leslie.
Well, I'm wondering if we had some rules and regulations, if he would give us, would be part of it for them to have to go by. Like what they can do, that kind of thing, and to make sure there's no sewage dumped in the river. That's the problem.
But he could let them come in there for free and they're still not gonna,
Yeah,
there's still no, there's no
yeah.
guarantee in
Yeah,
that.
he
He's already
can do
got the
it.
campground.
Yeah, he can do it anyway.
If y'all don't mind, could you speak up so Becky can get
I've not heard
it?
a
She's
single
trying to
word.
take minutes.
Well,
I know.
I didn't hear any of it.
We're trying to figure out, on the campground part, should we have us, in the special use part, some kind of rules and regulations that he would have for everybody to go by? And the board be able to see that?
Right, so
before
with
they're-
any special use permit, you do have the ability to recommend conditions be placed on that special use permit.
Cause he does have a right to put 2 campers in there, already, but not commercially.
Correct.
But if he had like a list of rules and regulations for the board to have, for all of us, for the county to have to go by, so if something comes up, that you have something to go by, not just be wide open with no rules at all.
Well, I mean, you have the ability to put conditions on this application. It wouldn't be applied countywide. I mean, that would
Now,
require.
but on
separate
this
ordinance.
application is what I
Right.
mean.
Yes,
For
so if there's
this
specific
particular-
concerns that you think can be addressed through a condition, then you have the ability to make that recommendation to the board.
Well, I would recommend that they have some kind of rules and regulations made up, and then the people that comes in get a copy of them, they sign them. Sort of like a contract, like since you're gonna be renting it out, so they'll know what they can and can't do.
Well, I would recommend that you look at specific concerns and come up with specific conditions to address those concerns. So for example, typically, like, let's say if you're worried about noise after a certain time, you know, quiet hours after 11 p.m., quiet hours after 12 p.m., whatever that may be. You know, the sewage disposal, quite honestly, that's handled by the health department. If somebody dumps their black tank on the ground, that is already a violation of health department regulations. That is something that they should be able to address. Trash, I mean, you know, we have a litter ordinance. We have a zoning ordinance, so we already have some ordinances on the books that regulate those situations. I'm trying to think of what else was.
Noise is one of those.
We have a noise ordinance that regulates, you know, noises beyond midnight. We have, yeah. we have a
Didn't they in
nuisance
July
ordinance.
even take that time limit out of there if it's like a continuous?
The noise ordinance was repealed and readopted. It had more to do with how noise was determined. But there is, there's a time limit. So if there's certain things that you're concerned about, I would recommend that you come up with conditions that would mitigate those.
Okay, we should go, if they had like trash receptacles there and
it's-
somebody responsible for emptying those trash receptacles daily, you know, then they're just gonna take away your risk for bears, there's gonna take away your risk for trash coming out of those receptacles going into the river. That would take care of that one. And then another thing, if you're talking about the gray water, the black water, you're gonna have records, right? You know, even when you check into a hotel, you have to give them your tag number, your driver's license number. You all would have, you know, if you had kept appropriate records, you would have, you know, the things to fall back on if someone did contaminate the water, or the soil, to fall back on. You know, it's just, this way I think that he's just kind of keeping it legal. I mean, he could have had a donation box and that wouldn't be a payment for them renting the spot, it's just a donation to keep the land up, you know? I mean, there's ways, I think he's just trying to be upfront and honest, and I think that if we work together and do put the trash receptacles there and maintain, you know, the road, if somebody gets stuck in there, like, you know, I worked out at the lake for 5 years, so and was over at the gift shops and things, I'm familiar with how people come and dump their sewage and all that stuff. I'm also familiar with the campground policies and things, and we never had any problem. I mean, there's 3 campgrounds there, and you're looking at Camp Burson, you've got, you know, 50 spots there, and everybody was just so respectful, but we had a camp post there at all times too. So they had somebody to go to, you know, he's not gonna be far away either. You know, I think it's a good idea, that you're being forward and trying to comply with the laws and with the county and to be, you know, to get along with everybody, so, and we can address your concerns. You know, I live right next to the old Buster Brown plant in Marion. If they ever decide to do something with that, I'm gonna be right there in your seat. So I can see where you're coming from, and I think if we all work together, so we don't have hard feelings like we've had, you know, in the past, where all the neighbors can be happy and get along, and your children can go fish, you know, or meet in the middle from your fishing spot to their fishing spot. You know, and I think it's an opportunity to grow as a community and help this place, you know, stay cohesive as a family-oriented place too.
I'm hearing fire syndromes.
What?
I'm hearing fire syndromes.
Are you gonna put a time limit on how long they can stay, or is it be?
Yes, absolutely. And you know, their time limit, the size of their holding tanks will dictate a lot of that, because they're gonna have to leave to go dump their holding tanks. But we're talking about, you know, our ideas for maybe a week, you know, maybe a week. There's gonna be no long-term where people actually live in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, you know, there's a campground right up the road from us. I know of 2 in Saltville that, people live there, and that's their business. It's not ours. But yeah, there will be a short time limit. This is not long-term, not at all. It's just a place of peace and quiet. It's all it's supposed to be.
I have one question. Can we ask them questions at this point?
Sure, if you want to.
You said it's in a flood zone?
It is.
And very much so of a flood zone to where even the portage zone is on a trailer?
Yeah, that's the reason. Mr. Williams said everything has to be mobile.
Is it up to code, like, I don't know how the codes, that would actually read? If something was to happen there, would it tear up the main road, Saltville Highway, you know, getting those campers and things, fifth wheels out of there?
No, you wouldn't believe the rock that I've hauled in there.
Okay.
And we're nowhere near finished yet.
Okay.
We did the entrance by state code, VDOT. VDOT designed this. And when we did it, though, we did it as residential, because that's what it was then. Things have changed now. We're applying to VDOT for a commercial entrance. Thank God we made the opening wide enough for a commercial entrance, not by my choice. It was the guardrail installer's suggestion. You need bigger. And it wasn't because he could see down the road. Yeah, it was, because that's his job. That's what he does. So anyway, all of that, you know, as far as getting in and out of there, one of my neighbors called me one time, Mr. Nutter, Bill, the water gauge says it's up to such and such. And I don't remember the numbers. He called me and told me that you've only got so long, you need to get out of there. And I had a trailer or something over there then. But he and I both know, when that gauge gets up, the water gauge, there's a certain time we used to keep up with it, but there's a certain time you've got to get out of there. Everybody's got to be ready to go.
Will you keep up with that again if it's commercial?
Absolutely,
and you have?
Absolutely, because we want to go up there and knock our power. Even though all the connections are above, we'll still want to go there and knock our power. If anybody's in there, we want to make sure they get out safely. And, you know,
Stipulations.
but now all that's because Mr. Williams was research. He researched what we were required to do, and we were fine with it, not one argument. Safe. It's safe.
Anybody else got anything you want this put in as part of the special use permit and everything that you've discussed? Becca, did you get it all?
Somewhat, could you just repeat what you want in the motion?
All right, well, you're going ahead and repeat what you want in there, so she's got it.
Appropriate trash receptacles and daily,
Disposal.
disposal.
Not a problem.
This is all,
It rules, it's not a problem.
this all sounds wonderful, but I know people well enough to know they don't always do what sounds good, supposed to do. I mean, nobody would think you dump your black tank on the ground, you would be careless with trash, this kind of thing, but it happens, people do it. She showed you the pictures right up upstream there, 1/8 of a mile. It sounds good, but sometimes it's not reality.
Do you want to finish your motion? Was that the only thing you had?
Does water get in the road there? Gets all the way up in the road?
It's been on both ends of our, when my dad was there, where he was landlocked pretty much right there, a couple times over the years.
And that while there are people there renting the spaces, that they are monitoring if we were to have rain, if it gets up to a certain point, and I'm not good with those numbers.
How about just the floodplain requirements be complied with?
Yes, that would be it.
Go ahead and mention yours. Maybe a limit up to 2 weeks on camping.
It'd be foolish not to comply with those. To leave a camper sitting there would be foolish, you know? And we're not gonna be gone on a 2-week vacation while somebody's camping there and expecting heavy rains, you know?
Did you get his
I got it.
limitation of 2 weeks?
So I have appropriate trash receptacles with daily removal, comply with floodplain requirements. 2 weeks maximum camping, is that?
And I want to add, I think he needs some kind of rules set forth for his campers, so they'll have something to go by that you can verify their, like their license
Absolutely.
number, their name.
Absolutely.
And you might want to include in us something about, you know, if they would come in and rent it for 2 weeks and they come a flood, that you've got
That-
right to have them to, for safety reasons to move
That
out.
would be an understanding in the beginning. And hey, if it's gonna rain, we're gonna pull you out at a moment's notice. They would be pulling themselves out, or if it's our camper, we will definitely be pulling it out. And it's not that big of a deal. We can tear one down and have it out there in 10 minutes.
Yeah, anybody else got any suggestions or comments?
As long as it's the appropriate record keeping to where if there is somebody intentionally dumping, and that's found
Not a
out, that
problem.
the authorities would have the records from the business owner.
Right, not a problem.
We will be enforcing the rules and regulations that you come up with.
The health department will take care of the sanitary sewage.
Well, I mean, who comes into the property? Who's gonna be coming in to visually see this? As far
There
as-
won't be a daily inspection if that's what you're asking.
So Mr. Varner won't be responsible for going in and checking his commercialized park, I mean, he won't be checking the litter,
Well,
anything like that?
I mean, yeah, he's obligated to do that, but I thought you were asking who was gonna regulate it from.
No, I meant if he's
Oh, okay.
obligated to do that. How far exactly do you live from the property?
5, 6 miles.
Okay. Yep, we're close.
We're just actually over the hill, but having to go down into town, then back up 91, we're probably 5 or 6 miles.
So that's all the conditions. I assume that was in the form of a motion.
That was the form.
So
Okay.
if we're done with conditions, then I would ask for a second.
That those
Put those conditions
be put
on,
in, so-
anybody she made the motion.
The one that you had there before had a contingency, they had to come back in X amount of time and update.
So all special use permits are obligated to file a final site plan within 6 months. Now, for some of these projects, that's not possible. The battery storage facility, the solar facility, they have to go through so many permitting processes that they can't really do that. So they've been submitting updates every 6 months to say, We're not there building yet, but this is the progress we made in the last 6 months. I fully anticipate if this is approved, I mean, to meet the letter of the ordinance, he's probably gonna walk through our door, submit the same site plan that he submitted to you all. I'm here to tell you I want 2 spaces in this location. We'll issue the permit, and that, in fact, complies with the ordinance.
On the bus, you had
So
after so much time, you had to come back and
Yeah, so DeBuzz.
approved again, or
Yeah,
whatever.
DeBuzz came in and effectively said he was doing it for the AEP project, and, at that time, if I recall correctly, he didn't have any desire for that permit to extend beyond a year, 2 years, or whatever he was asking for. And somebody latched onto that and put a condition of the special use permit that it expired after that time frame. Now, he has since come back and applied for another special use permit because he's already developed the site as an RV park, put in the water line, all of the infrastructure that's required, the electrical services. And so, and the AEP project's not over, and he's discovered there's other folks that want to use the campground. So yeah, it's not surprising that he wants to continue that special use permit.
Well, not being the devil's advocate here, but could you have a kind of a trial period in this case?
You could, I mean, in theory, yeah, you could put an expiration on the special use permit. The only thing I would caution you about is that the day will come when a developer says, I'm not gonna invest this much money into a project that I only guaranteed 6 months or a year. Quite honestly, I was surprised the bus did it. I personally would not have spent the money to put the water line in and the electrical services for a 1-year guarantee.
Well, in this case, so it could almost be like a trial period that, if everything adheres the way it should, and there aren't problems, then at some point, you could revisit it and say, okay, well.
And if that's the path you want to take, then you need to do the same thing that you did at DeBusk and put an expiration on the special use permit.
I think that'd be a good idea. I think that would be better than just because I'm sympathetic with those around. I think everybody ought to be able to do what they want to with their property, but at the same time, I'm sympathetic with those around. So that, having that contingency there, that you're gonna have that trial period and make sure everything is adhered to the way it should be, and if there's problems, then when the time comes, we'd look at it again and go from there.
Then if she would like to amend her motion, then
I move to amend my motion.
to put what year, what?
To put a time limit.
Say,
What kind of
Of
time?
what?
2 year, 3 year?
2 or 3 years.
We need to be specific.
I'm sorry, what?
We need to be specific.
Okay, let's put a 1-year, review on it. That way it'll still be fresh in everybody's mind, and we can look at it in 1 year, y'all will be reassured. I would also like to add, now that it's being amended, I would like to add, because I know that lighting was a resource, a concern, and you said that, you took your lights out. So that no light, invasive light will extend beyond that campground. That would be no, bright dusk to dawn, lights and things like that. So then that's gonna reassure your neighbors as well. Anything else?
I just know that's a serious flooding place there, and it really it covers that bottom. It gets down in the road.
With the amendments that's been added, we need to take a vote.
Need a second first.
Need a second, then.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Unanimous, 4-0.
Okay,
That should close that part.
that's it for that.
Now to the rezone of the Lufkin property, Myrtle's properties. What have we got?
Well, the board still has it, but, so this is a recommendation, so you'll get a letter.
What concerns have got the board on that? particular property. I'm gonna rezone to commercial.
I'm gonna be honest, that's a tough one. You know, I've got a friend that her mother is in a nursing home now and she can't move into her mom's house because of the wood grain place, because she can't breathe.
Just remember, it's not that. It is not that. It is not industrial. If you look at your by right uses for commercial district, just look at that list, that's allowable. None of those are anything like that. So just keep it in mind. I truly wish I could share with you what the exact business was. If you knew it, this wouldn't even be a question.
That's
I can
my
promise that.
problem too.
Yeah, and
Not
I wish I
more.
could, I truly do.
Here we
but
are
it's-
at the industrial
it's not
regulations.
something.
All right, so maybe this will help everybody. Let's take a look at the actual ordinance. So initially, they asked for it to be rezoned to industrial. And let me get to it in here.
I actually have a short.
Should I blow it up a little bit more for you all?
All right, so here's the intent of our industrial district. It is designed to provide areas suitable for industrial land uses and to allow for economic and employment growth. The primary activity in the industrial district is manufacturing of new products, including processing, packaging, treatment, and assembly of components for new products. The intent of this district is to promote land uses that are compatible as possible with adjacent commercial and residential areas. It then goes on and lists all of the uses allowed by right in the industrial district, okay? That is not what they are proposing. Instead, they are proposing to go to the commercial district. The commercial district, or the intent of the commercial district, is designed to provide a general range of retail, office, and service businesses, with businesses uses taking priority over any other type of use. The district is intended to promote business opportunities, economic development, and the provision of services for nearby residential neighborhoods and the community as a whole. The activities may generate relatively large volumes of customer traffic and have frequent delivery of goods and services. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but some examples of what you can expect to see in the commercial district. Personal service businesses, professional office, retail stores, dry cleaners, banks, restaurants, furniture, automotive sales and service, feed and seed stores, greenhouses, convenience stores, hotels, motels, theaters, fitness clubs, mini warehouse, funeral home, roadside market, fire departments, accessory dwellings, construction sales and service, animal clinic, automobile body shop with inside vehicle storage, machinery sales and service, including farm and construction machinery. So if you can see what I just read, any of the uses I just read off Route 11 in that area on that 15 acres, then that's what's being proposed, for that 15 acres to be rezoned to commercial. And I want to say two more things. The folks that are speaking to Heather right now, let's just say in theory that they were here tonight and they told you this is what we're proposing. This is what we want to bring to your community, and we need it rezoned to commercial to do that. Something could happen with that deal. You all could approve that with somebody sitting at this podium telling you that they're bringing 25 jobs and they're going to, whatever, fix Caterpillar dozers. All right? And if that deal falls through for whatever reason, if you've already rezoned it to commercial, everything I just read could go on that property. And that's the mindset I would like you all to be in. It really doesn't matter who's at this podium. When you rezone something to commercial or industrial, residential, whatever, you should be prepared for whatever's allowed in that district to go on that property. Today, tomorrow, next year, 10 years from now. And another example I'd like to give you is George Palmer. Some of you weren't around, but George Palmer got up here and said, I want to rezone my property off of an interchange from agricultural rural to commercial. He wasn't talking to anybody. He just knew that he wanted to develop that property commercially. And we had some of the same debates. Who's coming? How many people you want to employ? What's the tax base? And he legitimately had no answers. He just wanted to pave the way for commercial development. Now that's probably the best example of where it really shouldn't matter. That's a piece of property next to an interchange in Smith County. Why would you not want it zoned commercial? It absolutely floored me that we sat there for an hour that night and debated what was coming and what wasn't coming, and how many jobs it was bringing and what tax base it was going to be. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Rezone it to commercial and move on. And another thing that we gloss over every single meeting is the comprehensive plan. We spent a year debating that and what we should do with that. And we identified this property as prime commercial and industrial development. And now we have an owner sitting here saying, I want to rezone it to commercial. If we've identified it in the comp plan as being ripe for commercial and industrial development, it should be approved, hands down. That's all I'll say, unless you have a question.
I do.
Okay.
If I can figure out a way to put it into a question.
Okay.
The idea of the, and I'm not talking about this particular business, because to me, again, I think we failed them with the wood grain health conditions right there. I really do. But with that being said, we are getting close to the school. Those are our most precious citizens right there. If we rezone this to commercial, and we have, if this deal falls through or somebody else's deal falls through, whatever, we don't have any control, you know, as to what comes in there now. Are we going to work with VDOT to fix that road to where there's like a turn in for these trucks? You know, are there?
Great question. Yeah. All right, so anytime a new use is established on a piece of property, then there's an obligation to go to VDOT and apply for, in this case, a commercial entrance permit, okay? And they will expect to know, they'll insist on knowing who's coming and what the traffic impact is going to be. And then they will determine what additional measures, if any, are required, okay? So it's, and I can give you a few examples, but like when the hospital came into Marion, okay? Those turn lanes were the result of the hospital coming, you know? Their traffic impact analysis determined that there was going to be an impact on that area, and that those turn lanes and that signal would be required. And the developer is made to pay that cost. And so that process exists. And we have to rely on VDOT for that. We don't maintain our own roads. So that
Right.
all of those decisions are made at VDOT.
So that even though Oak Hall and the Cap and Gown place and the other industries are already there, if we add to that as an adjacent property, then it will be looked at again, just to protect, you know what I'm saying? Because you've got all that school traffic and stopping and starting.
Let me give you a good example. Atkins, you familiar with Atkins? The interchange in Atkins?
Yeah.
Right across the truck stop. If you go way back, you remember that there was Arnold's gas station there. It was torn down, and then Mark came in with the new gas station.
Right.
Initially, he had what I call a dive-in entrance. Okay, there was no curbing. That was actually approved by VDOT in the beginning. Okay, and he had an approved commercial entrance. All right, and we learned a very valuable lesson with that project, because he then came back later and said, I want to put a restaurant. Now, we made an assumption at the time, wrongly, that because he had an approved commercial entrance, we didn't have to send him back to VDOT. So we issued the building permit, he built the restaurant, and guess who got all bent out of shape? VDOT. Because they missed the opportunity to address that situation. Because, in their opinion, the traffic impact changed. It crossed a threshold that required the defined entrances. And so they came in after the fact and required him to pour those curbs. And if you're paying attention to the newspaper in Marion recently, that whole debate is happening with the drive-in right now. It's the exact same concept. He had a gigantic drive-in entrance, and they took on a sidewalk project. This is my interpretation. I may have details wrong. And they took that opportunity to fix that situation, and they put that, you know, that curb in the middle so that there is a defined entrance and exit. And that's being heavily debated right now. So the same theories would apply to this situation and any situation where a new use is being proposed. And then she will tell you a horror story about Pathway Park, if you want to stick around and hear about that.
That's a long story.
Yes, and yeah, that's a crazy long story, but yeah, we can go for hours and tell you how VDOT works. But the short story is, yes, there is an obligation for them to apply for an entrance and make sure that the existing ones are compliant or make the necessary upgrades.
I want to see if I've got everything right. We've got possibly something to do with semi-trailers. It's going to be something could be had to do with it, but this is going to be metalworking facility.
Well, see, I think it's gonna get convoluted if you worry
Well,
about those details, because
this-
you can make up something that
Yeah.
ain't there.
Well, I was just,
I would look at that list
Yeah.
right there and just say, do those,
Yeah.
those uses right there make sense on that property? And if those uses do, then in my opinion, rezone it to commercial. If there are uses there that make absolutely no sense and should not be there, then maybe you don't want to rezone it to commercial. But if you do that, I'm going to suggest to you that you go back to the comp plan and change it. Because you've already identified that property as prime commercial and industrial.
can we roll that up?
Yeah, can you scroll down?
Yeah, right there.
And I will say this, Kendra's probably going to cringe, all right?
I've cringed so much already.
But I will say that the company that is currently talking to Heather and Heather has reviewed this list and said what they are proposing is on this list.
Yes. And to make you all feel better, I didn't know a lot about their use either. They would barely tell me. I had to like claw and really get them to tell me something, because I've got to give you all something. You guys can't make your decision based off nothing. So that this list they chose from, it matches their daily operations. It is not manufacturing. It is not industrial.
And I'll use the same example I gave these three gentlemen. If Cracker Barrel was sitting here saying, we want to come to this site, how many people here would in a heartbeat rezone that to commercial?
Change that to Ruby Tuesdays.
Yeah.
All right, Ruby Tuesdays.
Then you got it.
Plug in any restaurant that you want, okay? If Ruby Tuesdays or Cracker Barrel was sitting here saying, I want this property rezoned, I would bet you dollars to donuts that everybody in this room would support that, okay? Well, they could turn around the next day, go to Heather and Heather, and whatever, not be able to come to an agreement on the price, and they walk away. You've already rezoned it to commercial. And if that were the situation, then guess what would happen? The company that we're not talking about tonight could locate there the next day. And that, honestly, that's the mindset we need to be in every public hearing, every rezoning request. It really shouldn't matter who's at this podium. The question should be, should this property be zoned the way it's being asked?
Okay, it's already looked at as commercial, possibility. It's in the comp plan.
All right, yeah, but you remind me of another point. I'm gonna come back to that. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, let's go ahead and go back to what you want there before
All
I
right,
go on.
if we pulled up a map right now, we would see that the building and a couple acres around it is zoned industrial. In theory, American Wood Fibers could come in and apply for a permit to do an annex over there, and we'd issue a permit. So in a sense,
What's making it better?
yes, in a sense,
Yeah.
you're taking the ability for a manufacturing facility to locate in the current building on the 2 or 3 acres that's zoned industrial now. By rezoning that 15 acres to commercial, you're taking that industrial prospect out of the equation.
All right, see if I've got this right. The building that's there, the warehouse, specifically, is it gonna be used in conjunction with whatever's going in?
Based on what they said tonight, I would say yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes, but again, that's my assumption from what they
So
said.
that's what I was picking up on. So it's,
It's a part of it, and there's also gonna be some beautification of some of the old derelict farmhouses and things that are currently there and just not of use.
Okay.
So that will be
third,
lifted.
we're gonna be creating jobs.
Yes.
That's a need in the county all over. So, has anybody got any concerns or anything? I need a motion.
Do you want the map?
Kim, if you want.
So this is the future land use map.
All right, so what we're talking about is an IM park line here, 289, the single wide on the right, which is no longer there, and then the farmhouse everybody's talking about. This is future land use map. What you see is purple or lilac or whatever. That was identified by the planning commission, adopted by the board to be commercial and industrial, all right? Being completely transparent, the 15 acres does extend just north of the property line on 251, that corner, and then it comes across. So I was very intentional when I made my speech. The vast majority of what's being asked to be rezoned to 15 acres is identified as commercial and industrial in the comp plan, all right? But there is a portion, that northern portion, that's rural residential.
So it's gonna go straight across kind of now?
Yeah.
Like behind that barn?
I'm sorry, it's gonna come up here and straight over. So existing building, barn, old single wide. So it's coming up and coming over, and this 15 acres is what's being asked to be rezoned commercial. Now, do me one favor, zoom out and put zoning on.
Hold on, I'm not used to this. This computer.
So that description of the industrial district and what's allowed in the industrial district, we've already zoned 289 as industrial. That's the way it was being used when we adopted zoning. Literally, American wood fibers are a similar use, could go on that property today, we would issue a permit and life would go on. They are actually asking for that to be changed from industrial to commercial, and then that line extended up, and all of this that's agriculture rural to also be rezoned to commercial.
I need a motion from somebody.
So truck stop was not in that commercial? Okay. I make a motion to approve it. I think we're protecting it all around. I mean, I hate to see that farmhouse go. I hate to see that barn go, just because there's so many memories, you know, as a child and stuff, and watching that but, you know, if we're gonna grow, we gotta grow. And that's one of the two areas of the county on number 11 that I think that we could grow safely as long as that school is protected. And I don't know if we can put stipulations in there that.
And that's a great point, and what I would suggest is you go back and look at the comp plan. Maybe you pull some of that commercial industrial area back away from the school, so that there's a buffer around the school.
Right, that's a good idea, yep.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All right, have a vote to approve it. And I would like to say this. Miss Luttrell has done things that's been good for the county. She's brought in some jobs. Some people might not agree with what's going on with it, but we can't control that now. But if we're getting jobs, I'm gonna vote to go with it. And hopefully everything will turn out good for us, for the county itself. So we had
Thank you very much. We appreciate your help.
We had a 3 for.
Hold on, you asked for those in favor.
Yeah, in favor,
Now
there's
those
3.
are-
If
ask for those
anybody
against.
abstains or against. Against first.
What I'm thinking is that I don't know enough to vote for it, but I don't wanna vote against it right now. But one of the things that's always bothered me is, we can't tell you what it is, but we gotta hurry up and do it.
And
And I'm not saying that this is that this applies here, but that's the reason that I'm gonna abstain right now. I mean, the motion, you've got 3.
Yeah, so
3 for and 1 abstain.
Alright,
And anybody make a motion to adjourn?
I do make a motion that we go back and relook at that comp plan to do just that with the school.
alright, so I was just, recommend that we put it on the agenda.
Next
And you
meeting.
all can bring that up or consider that next time you have a meeting.
Anybody make a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anybody second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? We're done. Hey,
I think they planned it.
hey, tell Hazel I done good.